again on this Tuesday morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take for Market Rebellion. Well, yesterday, interesting start to the day. As a matter of fact, rapidly we got back over that 33,000 level when we're looking over at the Dow. And then a couple hours later, it was gone. And just exactly what we have been seeing. A little bit of volatility, even though I realize the volatility index 21s, 22s, but a little bit of volatility early and some movement that we've got. And then all of a sudden, things can change very rapidly. So there's always the catalyst out there, whatever that might be. Yesterday, kind of leaned on NVIDIA to some degree, no doubt about that. We still did finish up almost 30 points on the Dow, so nothing bad there. As a matter of fact, the NASDAQ, the same thing, the same sort of a path. Started off strong early, get a little bit of a sell-off, did finish into the red, but nothing big, and especially given the fact of the news from NVIDIA and the fact that the stock actually at one point in time was down pretty significantly, the markets just seem to shake that off pretty well. Very interesting markets that we are in right now. The S&P did finish in negative territory, just barely, down about 5 points. You look at the price of crude. We were in that 88 range. We got back up towards 90. We look at natural gas. We were up over and pushing towards that 10 level at one point in time. We pulled all the way back, and then we've been sort of just adding just a little bit each and every day. Nat gas yesterday, quietly back up near that 750, 760 mark. You got the 2-year, that's something along with the 10-year that's been steadily kind of making a little bit of a move each and every day to the upside. Matter of fact, we were at about a 3.2 yesterday for the 2-year, about a 2.75 for the 10-year. That's been just steadily, as I say, moving a little bit higher day after day. Not as much of an effect on the markets as probably I would be expecting, but nonetheless, we'll see at some point in time. There does seem to be a level, especially when you see that 10-year starting to get up and over 3. That's oftentimes where we see a pretty big turn and a little bit of a sharp move to the downside from the markets. We'll see if that plays out again. Volumes, over 41 million contracts yesterday. Just heard on television that we were having a little bit of a slower time at the beginning of August. Actually, when you look at the derivatives markets, we've been pretty much on fire. As a matter of fact, the year-to-date average has been a little bit over 41 million. Yes, that's come down a little bit. Why did that come down? Because July was slow. August actually starting off, we're averaging about 41 million per day. Year-to-date average, that's right in line. As a matter of fact, you go back and you look at July, we were averaging about 37 million per day. So we have picked up a little bit as we've gotten into the month of August. Volatility, as I mentioned, right around the 21s. It finished yesterday, 21.50. That was something that it kind of stood out a little bit, but we feel like we've kind of pulled back into that range. And we'll see if there is something that actually moves us either back underneath 20, or if we continue this little bit of a slight rise that we are seeing of late. Not too much, not much to make anything out of that whole thing, but just keeping an eye on that volatility index, always important. Looking at the VXN as well. It's in the upper 20s after it had been holding above that 30 level for a really long time. Once it pulled back, we haven't seen it actually even sort of move even close to that 30 level. Materials up about 0.5% yesterday. That was a driving force. You look at U.S. Steel, you look at Freeport-McMoRan, throw in Cliffs, you get the idea of why things were working. Energy up about 0.5% yesterday. We look over at Exxon and BP and Petrobras, a name that we talked about not too many weeks ago with some of that unusual option activity. But a lot of the market was getting hammered a little bit because of the fact of what was going on with tech, nearly down 1%. It was Apple, it was Amazon, it was NVIDIA, of course. Throw that into tech, semiconductors. And then you got Microsoft as well. Throw in the financials, a little bit to the downside, not a whole lot, but it was JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citi, Bank of America, all together in negative territory. So what were some of the big movers yesterday? To the upside, you had Penn, had a great day. GM had a great day. Look over at something like a Clorox, had a great day. DaVita, another one of those. Lucid had a pretty decent day. Meta, Netflix, Twitter. You look at that communications area, had a very, very nice showing as well. You look at Disney and Dow, throw that in there, but there was plenty to pull on the markets as well. Tyson, I look at Warner Brothers. Again, that's been a name that's come up on multiple occasions. Throw in Las Vegas Sands, but the real culprit of a lot of the pull on the market yesterday, specifically looking at the NASDAQ, that was the semiconductors. You look at AMD, you look at NVIDIA, Marvell, Micron, Qualcomm, you get the idea. Across the board, a little bit of that pull along with those Chinese names day after day after day. PDD, JD, those names. I look over, I see Visa, I see McDonald's as well. A little bit of a pull. By the way, at the end of today, we are going to have a free webinar. It's going to be great. We're going to be getting together. I will be getting together with the unbelievable team from the Rebels Pit. Now, this is going to be absolutely outstanding. It is free. You just got to sign up. You get an opportunity right at the market close. What are they going to be talking about? How do you navigate these markets? How do you trade in the very short term? You hear me talk about these very short-term options all the time. These guys are going to help you, guide you through what they see and how they see the best ways to approach that kind of a trading. The short term does require an incredible amount of discipline. And anybody who follows me on social media, it's at Pete Najarian. If you follow me there, you know that I say DDA all the time. Discipline dictates action. That's not just something to say. It's true. It's all about discipline. You get a move, you've got to react. And that's exactly what these guys are going to be talking about along with myself at exactly 3 o'clock Central Time when we get that closing bell. It's going to be a lot of fun. I always look forward to getting together with the Rebels Pit. These guys are absolutely unbelievable. The focus now as we get into today, seems like people are looking at inflation, probably for some of the right reasons, actually. I'll get into that in just a second. But we started off very quiet, but we were in positive territory. NASDAQ just barely flirting a little bit above positive. We had the Dow up about 40 points, nothing big. The Dow ever since we started has been potentially basically sitting there in negative territory. Probably the lowest I've seen so far is about minus 55. I've seen it down about 40. Matter of fact, right before I came on here, it was down about 40. But take a look at the NASDAQ. You want to see a little bit of movement. Holy smokes, NASDAQ definitely getting dragged down. It was, as I say, up about 5 points in the pre-market. It was down 100 almost immediately. As a matter of fact, it's been down over 180 points. Last I looked before coming on the first hour, down about 170 points. Definitely getting hammered pretty big today and a huge dislocation of what we are seeing percentage-wise from the NASDAQ. You also have crude with a nice move again to the upside, pushing on 92, getting through 92 early. I look over at nat gas immediately after I see what's going on with crude. Yep, up about 3.5%, pushing a little bit closer and a little bit closer to that $8 level once again. I mentioned the volatility index around 22. That's almost exactly where we are right now. And I also said we're seeing the 2-year and the 10-year starting to make a little bit more of a move. You're looking at the 10-year right around 2.8. You look at the 2-year, 3.25, somewhere close to that. Definitely both just inching up almost every single day. By the way, Bitcoin continues to hover near that 24,000. It was a little bit below that, but seeing Bitcoin right around that 24,000 level. We've talked about that range, 22 to 24,000. And that's exactly where we find ourselves. Can it break up above that? Something that I think is definitely worth a watch, something where you ought to keep your eye on what's going on in the crypto space, specifically with Bitcoin, one of the biggest and baddest. We started off strong in energy. We continue to move to the upside with energy. We're up over 3% early on in the energy space in terms of the sectors. I look at financials. They're actually hanging in there pretty good. So what is pulling on the markets? Well, technology was down about 0.75%. That's almost doubled by now. It's not quite 1.5% to the downside, but was getting very close before I came on. Communications also sliding just a little bit down about 1%. So you can see where that pull is really coming from right now with the NASDAQ. There is plenty of news out there. Yesterday it was NVIDIA. They got a warning. They talked about gaming. They talked about that side of where their chips are being used. And they did issue that warning. Well, it didn't take 24 hours. We got Micron today, also with a warning. That is definitely weighing on the semiconductors right now. The CEO was on TV not too terribly long ago. It was not a great interview. And I'll tell you what, you can understand why there is a little bit of pressure that's been put on some of those names in that space. Before we get there, how about Nielsen? An absolute rocket ship up over 20% today. Then I look at some of those beta energy names, talked about how crude was moving to the upside to 92. We talked about energy itself. Well, if you look at Occidental, you look at Devon, you look at APA, a lot of those various names, all getting a nice strong bid to the upside. Mosaic as well in the ag space. I look over at the big boys like a Chevron, certainly reacting very nicely to the price of oil as that's starting to move back up to the upside. United Health, Merck, JP Morgan. I look at American Express, Those big, huge behemoth names, all very positive. Where are we getting a little bit of a drag? Well, it's not just semiconductors, but that is certainly an area. I look at Applied Materials, I look at KLAC 10 Core, I look at Seagate, I look at Micron, all of which getting a pull to the downside. We already talked about NVIDIA yesterday, Micron today, but they're also seeing a little something in the cruise ship space. Once again, we've talked about they have not been able to really pull off of those 2020 lows. They continue to hang around down in that level. Take a look at Carnival. Take a look at Norwegian today under a little bit of pressure. Zoom under some pressure as well. Match, which has struggled here and there. And then I look at Nikola. That's an interesting name. It's had a great move to the upside. It's also had a pretty significant pullback. That's why discipline matters. That's why today at the close, we'll be talking about discipline and how to use the discipline and have the different focus that you need to have when you're dealing some of those short-term things that we are seeing in the options world. You hear me talk about it all the time. Boy, these expire Friday. You don't have a whole lot of time. All of that. That's why the Rebel Group, the Rebel Pit, that's why these guys are just absolutely outstanding. I got two unusuals for you, and then we're out of here. I do have the Rebel's Edge today, right at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. I think John's going to join us from Croatia again. You just never know. If he's not there, AJ Monty, who's unbelievable. We're looking forward to having him join. He's always a lot of fun, and we've got a lot to discuss, and there's definitely plenty of sports, plenty of unusual, and we're going to hit some of the top stories as we see them for the day. NCR Corp, number one, IT software, trading just underneath 34. We got a buyer of 5,000 of the September. Wow. This is going out there, isn't it? I mean, we were just talking about all this short term. September 2nd, these expired. The 35 calls. Those should be pretty daggone interesting. They're going for about $3. So you are buying a little bit of premium, looking for a nice move to the upside from NCR. Secondly, a name that you guys all know all too well because it hits almost every single day. It might even hit every day. I haven't even really checked, but it sure feels like a charge point. Now it's pulled back a little bit. It had been pushing up and it got up towards 17. Did get a little bit of a pullback. It's now under 16 today. We got a buyer of 40,000 of the August 17 and a half calls. These are fairly short term, obviously. The August 17 and a half calls, 40,000 of those, 35 cents. They did hedge some against those 19 and a half calls. Let's not worry about those. It's those 17 and a half calls that they bought that are the most meaningful. This thing can make any kind of a move back up to that upside where it had just come from. This stock has a chance to have those options start to move pretty fast. Definitely something to keep an eye on, but understand this. Those are a relatively short-term expiring option. You've got to be disciplined and you've got to be on top of that. That's why you want to attend today right at the market close. I'm Pete Najarian. Have a great day of trading. I look forward to seeing you on the Rebel's Edge at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern.